We've got to hurry. Everyone's going. There's only 2 left in my size. Come on, Dad, let's go. I'm getting out.
No. Wait until I park. Van. You stupid!
Ngoc Minh Quan is a retired Vietnam War Special Forces operator who now lives a quiet life in London. He spends his days running a modest Chinese restaurant and focusing on his teenage daughter, Fan. One afternoon, Quan picks Fan up from school, and she is excited about an upcoming dance. She tells her father about a new boyfriend she wants him to meet. Fan asks Quan to drive quickly to a specific department store so she can purchase a dress before it sells out. When they arrive, the area is very crowded, and Quan struggles to find a place to park. Fan decides to jump out of the car and go inside the store first while Quan continues to look for a parking spot. This is the last time Quan sees his daughter alive. As Quan finally finds a space, another vehicle speeds into the area and causes a minor collision. Before the situation can be addressed, a massive bomb detonates inside the department store. The blast is devastating and claims the lives of 12 people, including Fan. Soon after, a reporter receives a phone call from a group calling themselves the Authentic Udi. The caller uses the code word Phoenix and claims responsibility for the attack. They state that British financial institutions will continue to be targeted as long as the occupation of Northern Ireland persists. Back at the site of the explosion, a heartbroken Quan is seen holding the lifeless body of his daughter. The men responsible for the bombing, including a man named Patrick O'Reilly, watch the news reports of the carnage without remorse. In Belfast, the Irish Deputy Minister, Liam Hennessy, is spending time with his mistress, Maggie. When he checks his phone, he sees several urgent messages from his wife, Mary, regarding the London bombing. Hennessy is surprised by the news and lies to his wife about his current location when she calls. Mary reminds him that it is the 20th anniversary of her brother's death, and Hennessy promises to mark it in his calendar. The following day, Quan stays in Fan's room, surrounded by her belongings and overwhelmed by grief. Meanwhile, Hennessy receives a call from a British cabinet minister, Catherine Davis. She demands that he take immediate action to help identify those responsible for the bombing. Hennessy agrees but asks for political favors in return, specifically royal pardons for some of his former associates. Hennessy holds a meeting with his council and orders a full audit of all weapons stockpile. The British government has determined that the explosives used in the attack came from Irish dumps. Because the bombers used a specific code word, Hennessy suspects there is a traitor within his own organization. He wants to find out who provided the explosives so the matter can be handled internally. Back in London, Quan visits the Counterterrorism Command Center for 5 consecutive days. He eventually meets with Commander Richard Bromley and asks for the names of the bombers. Quan even offers a bribe of £20,000 for the information. But Bromley refuses to take the money or provide any names. Bromley warns Quan that trying to contact such dangerous people will only end badly for him. Quan's background is revealed, showing that he has already lost almost everyone he loves. He escaped Vietnam with his wife and 2 elder daughters, but the daughters were murdered by pirates during the journey. His wife later died while giving birth to Fan, leaving Fan as his only remaining family. Having now lost her too, Quan has no reason to stop his search for justice. 3 weeks pass without any progress from the government in catching the bombers. Quan sees a television interview featuring Liam Hennessy, who discusses his past as a leader of the Unionist forces. Learning of Hennessy's former IRA connections, Quan believes the minister must know who the terrorists are. He decides to call Hennessy's office and waits on the line for 30 minutes until the minister finally speaks to him. Hennessy tells Quan that he has no connection to the bombers and does not work for terrorists. This refusal leaves Quan devastated, and he burns the photos of his deceased family and the newspaper clippings of their deaths. His friend and co-worker, Lam, tries to comfort him and tells him the bombing wasn't his fault. However, Quan is determined and hands over the ownership of his restaurant to her. While Lam is still talking to him, Quan quietly leaves the room and drives away in his minivan. He packs his belongings, destroys his old phone and SIM card, and prepares to leave London. Lam catches up to him as he is about to drive off, but he only looks at her one last time before heading to Belfast. He is committed to finding the answers that the authorities have failed to provide. Upon arriving in Belfast, Quan checks into a local bed and breakfast to establish a base of operation. He immediately goes to Liam Hennessy's office and asks to see him, but the secretary, Beth, tries to turn him away. 2 of Hennessy's security men, Kavanagh and Murphy, intervene and search Quan's bag. They find only groceries and a small Swiss Army knife, but they proceed to forcibly remove him from the premises. Hennessy eventually decides to speak with Quan privately in his office. During the meeting, Quan repeats his demand for the names of the bombers. Hennessy insists that he has not been involved with the IRA for 30 years and is now a politician dedicated to maintaining peace. Quan remains unconvinced and tells the minister that he will eventually change his mind before walking out. Instead of leaving the building, Quan goes into the restroom and uses his groceries to construct a small, homemade bomb. He exits the building just before the device detonates, causing a loud blast that shocks everyone inside. A bomb squad inspector later informs Hennessy that the device was intended as a warning rather than a lethal attack. Shortly after, Quan calls Hennessy to confirm he was the one responsible. Hennessy becomes angry and begins to threaten Quan over the phone, but Quan hangs up when he realizes he is not getting the names. Back in his room, Quan continues to assemble more complex devices. A security staff member named Billy soon discovers another bomb strategically placed on Hennessy's car. Attached to the device is a small piece of paper with the word names written on it. Hennessy is deeply unsettled by how easily Quan can reach him, though his security team notes these are still just warnings. Kavanaugh eventually tracks Quan to his bed and breakfast and sends men to drag him out of Belfast to discourage him from returning. Quan hears the men approaching his room and manages to block the door to buy himself time. He escapes through a latch in the ceiling and begins moving across the roof. The men catch up to him, leading to a brutal physical confrontation on the roof and in the hallways of the building. Despite being outnumbered, Quan manages to fight them off and enters another room through a window to evade capture. He eventually defeats the men on a staircase and makes a successful escape, leaving Kavanaugh frustrated. Hennessy is furious when he hears the news and orders his wife, Mary, to move to their farmhouse for safety. Hennessy sends for his nephew, Sean Morrison, who is a highly decorated tracker and former soldier. He instructs Sean to meet with Commander Bromley to explain that the official Irish leadership is not behind the bombing. Hennessy wants to cooperate with the British authorities to find the rogue bombers, but he stresses that the meeting must remain a secret to avoid political fallout. Meanwhile, Quan continues to monitor Hennessy's movements and follows him to a meeting with his mistress, Maggie. While Hennessy and Maggie are together at a restaurant, Quan takes a clear photograph of them kissing. Hennessy receives the photo as a text message and immediately knows it is a threat from Quan. At the same time, Sean meets Bromley at the Royal Naval College to propose a plan. They agree to change the code words used by different members of the Irish command so they can identify which official is leaking information to the bombers. Hennessy arrives at his fortified farmhouse, believing he is finally safe from the old man. However, Quan tracks him there easily and sets up a camouflaged position in the surrounding woods. He sneaks into the house to plant another homemade bomb and manages to disable 2 guards in the process. The bomb detonates and destroys a portion of the house, prompting Hennessy to realize he has severely underestimated Quan's capabilities. The morning after the farmhouse bombing, Hennessy instructs his man, Murphy, to fly to London with Mary for her protection. He intends for her to stay at their daughter's apartment or a hotel to stay out of danger. Mary insists she can take care of herself, but Hennessy refuses to negotiate. Suddenly, another explosion echoes through the property as a bomb planted in a car detonates, injuring one of Hennessy's men. Kavanaugh realizes that Quan is hiding in the nearby woods and leads a team of men to hunt him down. In the forest, Quan uses his special forces training to lead the men into a series of elaborate traps. He manages to capture some of the pursuers and demands the names of the bombers, but Kavanaugh eventually spots him. During the exchange, Quan is shot in the shoulder, though he successfully evades capture and disappears back into the brush. In London, Mary settles into a hotel and receives a visit from Hennessy's nephew, Sean Morrison. It is revealed that Mary and Sean are having a secret affair. Their meeting is interrupted by a call from Hennessy, who explains that the situation with Quan has escalated. Based on the descriptions of the traps and tactics, Sean realizes that Quan is likely a former Special Forces operative and agrees to help track him. After the call, Mary expresses her frustration with Hennessy, claiming he has become weak and is afraid to use his power. She reveals that she has never forgiven him for the death of her brother, Patrick. She wanted the murderers executed immediately, but Hennessy had refused, preferring to let the legal system handle it. She weeps in Sean's arms, lamenting that her brother never received true justice. Meanwhile, Quan remains hidden in the woods, struggling with his physical and emotional pain. He looks at a photo of his family before heating a knife to cauterize his gunshot wound. As he passes out from the intense pain, he has a vivid flashback to his escape from Vietnam. He recalls the horrific moment Thai pirates attacked his boat and abducted his 2 eldest daughters. In the flashback, Quan and his wife are shown being thrown overboard while they watch their children being taken away to be assaulted and killed. Back in the present, Hennessy receives Quan's official file from Catherine Davis and learns the full history of the man's tragic past. Shortly after, a head enforcer named Hugh McGrath visits Hennessy to complain about the recent audits of the weapon dumps. Hennessy confronts McGrath about 10 kilograms of Semtex explosives that have gone missing from his specific dump. McGrath argues that the recent bombings have given their cause real momentum and urges Hennessy to support the radical faction. Hennessy is outraged, as his original plan was only to hit small financial targets with warnings to ensure no one was killed. McGrath claims he does not know who the rogue bombers are or who is controlling them. Hennessy realizes that his attempt to use the bombings for political leverage has spiraled out of his control. Hennessy finds his dog unconscious at the farmhouse and realizes that Quan has managed to infiltrate the property once again. He reaches for his gun, but finds the case empty. Quan reveals himself and holds Hennessy at gunpoint, showing the minister that he is wearing a homemade bomb and is prepared to detonate it if he does not receive the names. Hennessy explains that he truly does not know the identities of the rogue bombers yet, but details his plan to use changing code words to find the traitor in his ranks. This explanation manages to satisfy Quan for the moment. He gives Hennessy exactly 1 day to find the names before he returns to take further action. The next day, the rogue cell carries out another attack, detonating a bomb on a double-decker bus. It is revealed during this event that Maggie, Hennessy's mistress, is actually working directly with the terrorists. Sean Morrison arrives at the farmhouse to begin his mission of tracking Quan through the woods. At the same time, Bromley contacts Hennessy to report that the latest bombing claim did not include any of the new code words. The caller, a man with an Irish accent, informed the authorities that there would be no more cooperation or codes. Hennessy realizes he has been outwitted and that a mole in his inner circle has leaked the plan. Hennessy remains unaware that his wife, Mary, is the one who compromised the code system. Catherine Davis calls Hennessy and expresses her fury over the second bombing. She warns him that the Prime Minister is prepared to put paratroops back on the streets of Belfast within 48 hours unless the bombers are surrendered immediately. Hennessy receives a surveillance report from Murphy, which reveals that Mary met with Sean at her hotel and also contacted Hugh McGrath. Hennessy concludes that his wife is the mole working against him. Meanwhile, the rogue cell led by Patrick O'Reilly prepares a new device hidden inside a laptop. Their plan is to target a security conference in Rome by placing the bomb on a flight carrying top government officials. Back at the command center, Bromley successfully identifies Patrick O'Reilly as one of the bombers and discovers McGrath's involvement. Bromley calls Hennessy and informs him that the police have tracked McGrath's GPS signal to Hennessy's own driveway. He tells Hennessy that a military team is 30 minutes away from arriving to arrest McGrath. Bromley warns Hennessy that when McGrath is captured, Hennessy's political career will be over because of their close association. He offers Hennessy a chance to save himself if he can get the names and locations of the bombers from McGrath before the soldiers arrive. McGrath arrives at the farmhouse with his men, and Hennessy immediately instructs Kavanaugh to send the extra security into the woods to assist Sean in the hunt for Quan. Once they are alone inside the house, Hennessy attacks McGrath and holds him at gunpoint, demanding the names and locations of the rogue bombers. When McGrath initially refuses to cooperate, Hennessy shoots him in the foot to force a confession. McGrath finally relents and provides a list, which shocks Hennessy when he sees the name of his mistress, Maggie, on it. McGrath explains that Maggie's real name is Sarah McKay and that she was placed as an insurance policy to ensure Hennessy did not lose his nerve. If the bombers were ever caught, she was intended to lead the authorities back to Hennessy to ensure his downfall alongside theirs. Hennessy then asks about his wife, Mary, and McGrath confesses that she sought his help to organize the bombings because she never forgave Hennessy for the death of her brother. After obtaining all the necessary information, Hennessy shoots McGrath in the head, killing him. Hennessy immediately calls Bromley to relay the names and locations of the cell. Meanwhile, Maggie is with the reporter, Ian, who is unaware that he is being used as a mule to carry the laptop bomb onto a flight. While Ian is washing up, Maggie secretly installs the battery containing the explosive into his laptop and sets it up for detonation. In the woods, Sean receives a call from Hennessy, who informs him of McGrath's death and sends him the bombers' identities. Hennessy specifically mentions that Patrick O'Reilly is the man responsible for the bombing that killed Quan's daughter. He orders Sean to end this now before hanging up. Shortly after, Quan emerges from the trees and engages Sean in a brutal hand-to-hand struggle. Quan eventually gains the upper hand but chooses not to kill Sean. Sean, realizing Quan only wants the names, provides the passcode to his phone so Quan can see the data Hennessy sent. After learning that Sean was also Special Forces and has lost much of his own family, Quan decides to let him go. Sean returns to the farmhouse and admits to Hennessy that he was outmatched by Quan. Hennessy reveals he knows about Sean's affair with Mary and how she manipulated him into revealing the secret code changes. Hennessy gives Sean one final assignment before ordering him to return to New York and never come back. The next morning, Bromley's tactical team surrounds the bomber's apartment, but Quan manages to slip past the police perimeter undetected. At the airport, Ian passes through security, and the laptop bomb goes undetected by the scanners. Back at the hideout, the bombers hear the doorbell and find Quan disguised as a plumber. He claims he needs to check the units for a gas leak, and the men reluctantly let him in. Inside the apartment, Quan identifies Patrick O'Reilly by the distinct burn on his hand. The men become suspicious and demand to search Quan's bag, pouring his tools and supplies onto a table. When they discover a machine gun hidden among his things, Quan immediately launches an attack. He seizes the weapon and begins a frantic shootout, taking cover as he targets the terrorists one by one. The police operatives stationed outside hear the gunfire and halt their advance, waiting for orders while the situation inside escalates. Quan successfully eliminates the men in the room and hits Maggie in the shoulder, leaving only Patrick O'Reilly left to fight. The two engage in a final, brutal physical struggle until Quan manages to overpower Patrick and chokes him to death. Just as the police raid the flat, Quan escapes through a window, leaving the authorities to find the bodies and a wounded Maggie. The officers find Maggie, whose real name is Sarah McKay, and begin a harsh interrogation to find the remaining bomb. She initially refuses to speak, but after the police begin using electric torture, she confesses the details of the plot. She reveals that the bomb is on a laptop and is scheduled to detonate at 3 p.m. on a specific flight. Commander Bromley is alerted and begins a desperate race to stop the aircraft. At the airport, Ian is working on his laptop, unaware of the danger, when he hears that his flight has been delayed. Police officers rush into the terminal searching for him, but he does not hear them at first because he is wearing noise-canceling headphones. Once he realizes they are calling his name, he identifies himself, and an officer grabs the laptop and runs toward an empty jet bridge. The bomb detonates seconds after it is thrown, but because the area was cleared, there are no casualties. With the immediate threat resolved, Bromley orders his team to leave no traces of the operation, resulting in the summary execution of Maggie. Bromley is informed that it was a Chinese man who took down the cell, and he issues an alert to find Quan. Meanwhile, Liam Hennessy receives a call from Catherine Davis, who informs him that he will remain in his political position but will now be completely under her control. He is ordered to fly to London immediately to brief the authorities on everything he knows. In a separate location, Mary Hennessy hears her doorbell and finds Sean Morrison standing there. Following the final order from Liam, Sean shoots Mary in the head, killing her instantly. Back in Belfast, Liam returns home only to be ambushed by Quan, who is waiting for him. Quan reveals the photograph of Liam and Maggie, which links the minister to the terrorist. Quan forces Liam to upload the incriminating photo to the internet so the entire world will see him as a terrorist. After the upload is complete, Quan tells Liam he should be ashamed and leaves him to face the consequences. In London, Bromley realizes Quan has returned to his restaurant and considers taking action, but ultimately decides to simply have him observe. Quan enters the restaurant and is met by Lam, who embraces him and gives him a kiss as he finally puts his past behind him.